Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris. This is Real Estate Coaching Radio. We have a really fun topic for you today, inspired by you guys. You're asking us to teach you more, coach you more, train you more on expired listings, which happens to be one of our favorite topics. So thank you very much for asking. And
Yep.
so today's podcast is called Turn Expireds into Solds, Top Secrets Revealed. So Julie Harris.
Yes. And in fact, a lot of you guys would say, well, of course, Tim and Julie want to talk about expireds. We all know that that's one of your favorite spokes that you teach us in Premier Coaching. But a lot of this podcast, and you'll find the notes, Tim will tell you how in a second, is inspired from your colleagues who are actually out there, boots on the ground. These are from real world agents doing what we coach you to do, not just listening to Tim and Julie talk about expireds. They are executing and they are successful in turning those into solds.
And it's important to remember that, hey, Julie and I actually sold real estate for a decade between
That
100 and
too.
200 homes per year. Yeah. And we did do a lot with expired. So we're not just talking theory here. We're talking actually having done it ourselves and then teaching a lot of other people how to do the same thing. Julie mentioned the notes. You guys who are everyday listeners know what I'm about to say. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, harrisrealestatedaily.com. It's the only place where our notes live. And there's a lot of notes on every one of these podcasts. Julie is really taking these to the next level because we frankly have 22,000 people that are subscribed to the newsletter, 54% open rate. And I know you guys are opening and reading because you want the notes. So these notes are perfect for you for your own training, but they're also great if you want to share on social, if you want to do some, training in your own office amongst your own team, brokerage, doesn't matter. The content is all there. And we also include a lot of unique content just for our newsletter subscribers, and it's free. So just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com, harrisrealestatedaily.com, or click the link below in the show description. And doesn't matter if you're on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, it's there. And then just subscribe. It's really important that you do that. And as a special thank you for all of our newsletter subscribers, we are going to be doing a mastermind. You are all going to be receiving an invitation for it, I'm hoping, this week. And we're going to do we're going to start doing the masterminds this weekend. So don't be surprised come on Monday or Tuesday, Julie and I are completely exhausted because we're planning on doing 3 masterminds. But the only folks that we're inviting are going to be the ones that are in our newsletter. So make sure you go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. Julie Harris.
All right, how to turn expireds into solds, top secrets revealed by your colleagues. The following secrets come straight from our coaching clients who are successfully taking and selling expired listings. Today, we'll share their insights, explore what real expired sellers say about their previous agents. I think you'll find that interesting, and provide actionable strategies for you to achieve success with expired listings too. So the first thing, a lot of these are observations that I think, unless you're out there doing it, you're not going to realize. The first thing is, number one, more opportunities than you think. Coaching clients report far more expired listing opportunities than they initially realized before they started pursuing expireds. Key changes they made to uncover more expired homes include things like expanding their geographic search, looking further back in time, and including withdrawn and temporarily off the market listings. If you are unsure how to perform these searches, call your MLS or ask your broker for help. There are sometimes even for CE credit, there are classes that teach you how to mine your MLS easier than you can do by hunting and pecking and trying to figure it out on your own, because nobody really teaches this except, expired hunters and coaches.
But Julie, when you and I hunted expireds, we did not pull our own information out of the MLS. It's good to know how to do it because you can do your own research.
Yes,
Definitely
just for the
important.
sake of them knowing
Right.
that they exist, and then you go to RedX.
Exactly. That's where I'm leading. If you guys want to have a service that does it all for you, we use a very similar service when we were going after expireds. All of our coaching clients really, it's almost funny as I'm hearing you say that, Julie, because the ones that aren't serious about calling expireds are the ones that will go and laboriously try to figure out how to find phone numbers and whatnot.
Yes,
And then
that's
they'll
true.
spend like 5 hours finding one phone number. Well, RedX does all that work for you. So all you've got to do with RedX, it's really an awesome system, is you wake up in the morning, they'll have already gone into your MLS and they'll have found all the newest expireds. And the newest expireds will also include phone numbers and making sure it hasn't been relisted and any property information. And then you can, it loads, RedX loads all the phone numbers and the contacts into their own auto dialer, and you can start just basically hit a green button and it starts dialing for you, and you have the conversations and you can go through all the expireds relatively quick. Julie mentioned a couple suggestions, obviously called the old expireds. The way that RedX works is it'll just load all the expireds. It doesn't really pay much attention to the order of things in terms of price, but I'll give you another little advanced player tip here. A lot of agents will shy away from the expireds that are more expensive. So if you really want to have a nice little advantage, call the more expensive expireds first. And again, like I said before, call the older expireds. Make sure you're calling expireds on Saturday mornings. Make sure you're calling expireds on the last day of the month and the first day of the month, or really the last week of the month and the first week of the month, because that's when there's almost always the most expireds. And the best times to call expireds are always going to be the last day and the first day, or really the last week and the first week, fall over holidays, because everyone's home, everyone's in a good mood. And if you are in a market where there are other agents calling, they're probably not going to be doing the work because after all, it's the holiday. So here's your next steps. Text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372. Text the word RED, RED, to 47372. And when you do, we'll text you back a link, and then click the link, and that will give you a $150 discount at RedX, so you can get started right away. And I gave you some tips when you're having them help you set up your system. Make sure you ask them to give you the old expireds too, because the old expireds are oftentimes some of the best expireds to call. So text the word RED, R-E-D, to 47372. And of course, remember, message and data rates may apply.
That's right. And don't ask RedX to just give you your one favorite zip code that,
Yep.
happens to be where you live or you've always wanted to break into. You can do that, but you need to expand to the point where you get enough to go after. That's what point number one was, is when you're not overly limited, whether that's yourself or certainly giving RedX instruction, the zip codes and the time frame to go back. And I'll give you a really quick, one of my favorite coaching client stories. I had a client in Indianapolis. She did exactly what you just said, Tim. She started with the most expensive because she knew that not very many agents were calling them. And she started with an older, more expensive expired. It expired at $2 million, which of course in Indianapolis is all the money. She called him. He was a CEO. You know what he said? He said, I knew I was overpriced. I was building another house that's even bigger than this one. Now I've got two ginormous mortgages to pay. Just tell me, he literally said, just tell me what to do. And she ran some comps, and it was like a $400,000 price reduction. He said, yes, just tell me what to do. I'll do anything. I don't want these two mortgage payments. I'm closing on my new construction home next week. Can you come over today? Now, she was a textbook example of what you just described. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, expireds really are the best source of listing leads, and there always have been. Sorry, true.
yeah,
Because why? What do you know?
exactly.
You know they're willing to work with an agent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the price you know what the price shouldn't be. You
Probably,
know
yeah.
that you know they're willing to pay a commission. Chances are they're motivated. Chances are they're more motivated now than they were when they listed the house. Julie's example is a good one of it. And so on and so on and so on. And it's easy to find their phone numbers, right? Use
Yes.
RedX. And next up would be FSBOs. But why are you guys spending so much money on marketing and branding and lead buying and all the rest of it when your expired listing leads are free? Julie, point number two.
Yes. Point number two is surprisingly receptive sellers. No, they're not mean and hang up on you all the time. Clients say expired listing owners are much nicer to talk to and more open to discussion than they expected. The conversation with their coach always goes the same way. You're not going to believe how nice they were. These sellers are craving a fresh approach and a better strategy. And observation number three, and then we're going to get into the top complaints that expired sellers wage against previous agents so that you won't be one of them. The number three thing was fast sales are marketing gold. Clients who secure these listings often sell them within 10 days or fewer. They might have been around for 90 days, but when you relist an expired and you fix all of the issues and the seller's more motivated and does what you ask them to do, they sell faster. That creates a fantastic marketing opportunity to prospect even more expired owners. Use client testimonials for videos, postcards, door hangers, and more. So just makes sense, right?
It's arrogant, it's stupid, and it's dangerous to assume that expired listings are somehow tainted inventory. It's not. It's just you're trying to create an excuse in your head not to actually have to pick up the phone and call them. The reality of it is that oftentimes an expired seller will sell or won't sell because at the time they listed the house, maybe they had a year to sell it before the new home was done or they had to relocate or whatever. But now 6 months has passed by. Now they've only got 6 months left, so they're actually more motivated. The other thing that's fascinating in the MLS, there's a glitch, I think it's a glitch anyway, that you have accumulative days on the market. And the way most people search for listings, buyers included, is they're just going to look for the newest listings, 30 days or newer or whatever. And they automatically assume anything older than that's going to be stale milk. And so those older expireds, what happens is the activity activity on a new listing, it essentially peaks within the first 2 weeks in most markets in the average sale price range areas, and then it drops like a rock. And then once usually 60 or 90 days have passed, it's hard to get a showing on it because everyone just assumes the market has passed it over. So it must have a problem. It must have, just some sort of issue with location or condition or price or whatever. And the market's always going to be more, salivating over the newest listings. As soon as you pull that thing out of the MLS because it's an expired, you give it new pictures, a new description, new MLS number, new days in the market. That's the reason these oftentimes will sell, you know, despite the fact that they'd previously, failed to sell. It won't matter because the buyers that were in the market the first time this thing was on for sale aren't in the market anymore. Frankly, most of the agents that may have been in the market working with those buyers when that house was that now expired just previously for sale, they probably aren't working with any buyers in that market anymore anyway, or maybe not even in real estate anymore. So don't have all these preconceived notions about how an expired listing is somehow not as desirable as a, never been on the market before listing. It's not true. It's all the same. It's just going to take you getting past your head junk. And then whoever gave you the gift of all the head junk about these, myths about expireds and whatnot, you maybe want to take a little, spend a little bit less time listening to them. And
Yeah.
again, this is from decades of coaching. We know the emotional and psychological burden some of you guys carry around that prevent you from making the most of what this market has to offer. And we know for a fact right now it's expired listings. All right, Julie, top complaints expireds have about their previous agents. Now, the reason that we are going through the work of showing all of these to you guys, and you're going to get the newsletter, harrisrealestatedaily.com, is because you want to know what the sellers were thinking so that you can position yourself not just to keep the listing, because the secret of all listing agents, this is the grandest secret ever, is the secret to being a successful listing agent is have the listing when it sells, right? I mean, it's a joke, but you guys get the idea. So it still makes me laugh. But I remember the first time we heard that, Julie, we're like, what does that mean? Oh, yes, that is true. Yeah. But so when Julie and I are going through this list, what we have done in Premier Coaching and what we've done with our pre-listing pack, we've done with our expired, script, all the things is we know all these things. And so we knew what the sellers would be thinking. And we know how, like, for example, a seller might ask you, well, I had this house listed previously for 6 months and you're active in the market and you never showed the house. Well, we're going to tell you how to overcome that when you're calling expireds. If you, for example, are worried that you don't necessarily have a unique marketing plan or you don't have a strategy that's going to, wow the seller to the extent where they'd want to list with you, maybe you're even intimidated by the previous listing agent because you thought they were the greatest thing since sliced bread and they didn't sell it. It's because you don't have a unique selling propositions. You don't have a pre-listing pack. You're not a ethical real estate professional agent. You haven't earned the right to be confident yet. So I strongly encourage you guys to look into Premier Coaching. Just go to premiercoaching.com because what we've done in Premier Coaching is create an entire proven system so that you can, with excitement, go after all the expireds in your marketplace, knowing that you're saying things that are unique. So for example, if you're calling an expired and we do want you to call them and you're using our scripts, first of all, and they might even say, well, I've heard from a bunch of other agents in the marketplace already today. And if you hear that, first of all, you got to know whatever number they tell you, you got to divide it by like 90%. I've heard from 10 agents today. No, you haven't. You've heard from like one. And most agents will never call. And the agents that call, for the most part, are terrible at calling. So you really have no competition. What most agents will do is they'll try to direct mail them or social mediaize them or whatever. They're going to avoid the real work of real estate because it requires skill. But because you are a Premier Coaching client and you know how to actually do the real work of real estate, you're the one that's going to be calling them. And you know what? You're the 10th agent to call me today. That doesn't surprise me, Mr. Seller. The fact is that we are all very surprised that your house didn't sell. It's one of the nicest properties that were for sale. But I got good news for you. Sometimes the best homes don't sell. It's not for the reasons that you may have been told. Don't say anything after that and go right back to the script. So Mr. Seller had this house sold. Where were you going next? And find out what their motivation is. And then just follow our script and follow our system. And then you're going to set the appointment. So today, Mr. Seller, at 5 o'clock or 5:30 would be better. And I'll pop by and show you what we can do to get the property sold. Well, 5:30 would be better. Okay, perfect. In the meantime, I'm going to send over a pre-listing pack. You don't have a pre-listing pack, do you, dear listener? We've created it for you. That you're going to send it over ahead of time. The pre-listing pack acts as your silent salesperson and does all the work for you. Does it to the extent that sometimes you show up at the seller's house and they're so surprised and impressed by your pre-listing pack that they're actually just going to want to list with you just off that. If you want to see what it looks like, go to premiercoaching.com and just scroll down on the page and you'll see it. Right? This is the confidence that you'll have when you're a Premier Coaching client. And you can join Premier Coaching right now for free. Just go to premiercoaching.com. And that does give you immediate access to the first level of Premier Coaching. And that does include a daily semi-private coaching call with the Harris Certified Coach. Go to premiercoaching.com or simply text the word Premier to 47372 and we'll text you back a link. Member message and data rates may apply. All right, Julie, let's roll in.
Yeah, so all these top complaints are from actual real world expired sellers. Every single one of these examples came straight from one of our coaching clients who had the actual conversation, took the listing, and proceeded. Okay, so the first one is known as set it and forget it approach. The previous agent listed the home in the MLS and did nothing else, expecting it to sell itself. This suggests overpromising and under-delivering, leaving sellers frustrated. It's just plain lazy. Now, this comes from the fact, I'm sure, that there are still houses that you can set and forget and they'll sell themselves. But that is way less prevalent than it was, say, during the pandemic. And it's also not consistent even in your own town or city. Some price ranges will still do that, and some of them won't. But the mistake here is the agent assuming that that's going to happen and maybe overpromising to that seller. We see this especially in like 30-day expireds where the seller and the agent believed it was going to sell overnight and everybody was disappointed. So set it and forget it is not a strategy.
Well, it's the 5 P's of real estate, right, Julie? Remember those? Do you remember? It's in our
Put a sign in the yard, pray it'll sell, possibly try an open house. I can't remember the other two.
Put it in the MLS. I think we're down to one more. What's the what? I forget the other one. Well, anyway,
they're all lazy peas, though.
Yeah, they're all lazy peas. All right, point number 2: the previous listing agent didn't do any open houses, and that is something that will, it's so funny nowadays. If there's a ton of inventory and a ton of homes for sale, open houses work great. If there's no inventory for sale and there's a lot of demand, obviously, open houses work great. Point is, open houses always work great as long as you know how to work the open house. Correct. And one of the things that we have as part of Premier Coaching is we do have a complete open house system. And it's a blueprint on how to do an open house with all the exact points and all the exact steps. And the old way of doing it is just sticking a sign in the yard, maybe putting it in the MLS that's going to be open and hoping and praying that someone comes by and wants to see it. Of course that doesn't work and you're not going to pull any leads out of it. So without getting into great detail, the previous agent skipped an open house claiming they didn't work, didn't believe in them or deemed them unnecessary. This angers the seller. And open houses are one of the few tangible efforts they can actually see. Remember, they're watching HGTV and Bravo Real Estate every show. Yeah, that's right. Shows every night. So they're expecting you to do open houses. And if you're not doing it, again, they can't see the other stuff you're doing. Sorry.
Bless you. Bless you twice.
It's 2.
Yeah.
I never sneezed 3 times. Anyway, so that's the thing that they can actually see to hold you accountable. And if you're doing open houses, you're also, meeting the neighbors, meeting prospective buyers, follow our open house system. But remember, even if the seller wasn't that gung-ho about doing open houses the first time the house was listed, you want to follow our pre-listing, pack in our system and strongly encourage the seller to do an open house, because what an open house really truly is, maybe you'll sell the house out of the open house, but it is the most powerful way, that and frankly a for sale sign, for you to actually imagine it. Well, think of it this way. You're in a neighborhood surrounded by homes, everybody and their brothers trying to sell something, be it Ginsu knives or, travel vacations to Disney World or new car tires, whatever it is, to consumers that live in those houses. But you are the only person they can actually, maybe the kids, the bouncy houses that they set up on birthday parties where they're able to put a little sign out in front, like, Bob's Bouncy Houses, type of thing. But other than that, real estate agents and brokers are the only ones that are, essentially legally allowed to do open houses, to allowed to put signs, multiple signs, sometimes hundreds of signs, dozens of signs, and in a neighborhood to make it almost like you have a little commercial real estate brokerage operating inside of these established communities. Now, what if you were to take that idea and follow our Harris, what was it called? Harris Tour of Homes. And
Mhm.
that's something you can replicate too. What if you get together with, maybe you have multiple listings in a community? Maybe you get together with the other agents, that maybe even competing brokerages, and you guys all do organized open houses on the same day. Have a map that goes from one open house to the other to the other. You've all automatically essentially raised your status inside that community. But the knockout punch for that is if you have multiple listings in a particular community and all the open houses that you're doing that particular day are part of your tour of homes. That's our Harris Tour of Homes. And the way we would do it, and we have many, many coaching clients have done the same thing, is you, again, create a map, you give them the map, and each of the, you put little stars by the houses that are being held open, and give them a physical piece of paper. And then that, the first one's open from 11 till 12 or 11 till, 1. And the next one's open from 1 till, you guys get it? And then you physically move from one open house to the other, to the other, to the other. Now, if you're holding 3 open houses, on one Sunday, and you're seeing the buyers, the same ones you saw at the first one 3 hours ago, show up at the third one, those are really motivated buyers, and probably also are sellers that are looking to comp their house because they're a neighbor that's actually going to be putting their houses for sale. You have to see the expansive opportunity that open houses really can be. And yet it's one of the easiest things, because agents arrogantly assume that social media is going to be able to get the job done with regards to, have the same effect as open houses. It's absolutely the exact opposite of true. Julie, point number 3 is a horrible but funny, easy problem to fix.
In fact, there are entire websites devoted to the world's worst house photos, but we
Point number
won't go down.
3.
Point number 3 is called terrible photos. The previous agent's pictures were awful, featuring reflections in mirrors, open toilet lids, dark shots, unstaged rooms, or unprofessional quality. Sellers were disappointed by the lack of effort. It's not the seller's job to make their homes shine. It's your job to present it in its best light. There's so many examples of this. I think a lot of MLSs have actually outlawed using iPhone photos for this reason. Not all of them. Sometimes you still come across that. But we've all been scrolling through looking at, do I want to see something? What do I want to show? Does your listing make it like, I'm a buyer's agent? I should be dying to show that as soon as possible. I should have the buyers I'm working with saying, I just saw this pop up. It looks amazing. But this is a very common complaint with expires, is very little effort was made on the photos.
What we would do on listing presentations is we would actually grab a whole bunch of pictures from the MLS of all the, and if we were going on an expired listing appointment, we would go and show the sellers, first of all, how their house looked in the MLS that they hadn't already looked with, most of them had. But then what we did is we would pull the collateral that the competing agents would have, home brochures, things like that, and we would put them on the table in front of them. And we would show the sellers what the competing agents out there were doing in terms of pictures. Again, it's one of those simple things that a seller can see an agent's doing or not doing well. And it's an easy way to compete. And if you're showing a seller all these pictures of other homes that are for sale, or maybe their house that expired, and showing them how bad the pictures look by comparison to the competing houses, how your pictures and your brochures and all your collateral looks by comparison to what their previous listing agent was doing, it's a knockout punch. Now, we had a folder. We took it in a briefcase. We didn't, with all this stuff stuffed in there. We didn't always have to use it. But if we knew we were competing against an agent, and usually in these communities, you are going to be competing against maybe 3 or 4 of the same agents every time, grab all their collateral, and I bet you all of them have hit the lazy button on making good brochures and whatnot. And it's easy to compete on things like that. It's all part of our listing presentation and listing process. And I want to let you guys know, if you're not with eXp Realty, you are completely letting the ball get by you, because eXp Realty has got one of the coolest marketing teams that you have instant access to, done for you websites, especially on the luxury side of things. It is some of the most, I think, well done, not just the marketing itself, but the interaction between the agent getting the marketing done on behalf of their seller, on behalf of their listing, that between, the marketing team at eXp and actually getting the work done. It's the smoothest process I've ever seen before, which, look, everyone can say I have a great home brochure, but if it took you hours to get it done, that's not a good experience for you, waste of time. That doesn't happen at eXp Realty. It's one of the best, I think, most powerful, underappreciated benefits of eXp is how great of a job they do supporting agents when it comes to collateral in general. Turnkey websites, brochures, virtual tours, the whole thing. If you guys are ready for an eXp Realty conversation, if you're ready for a brokerage upgrade, or choosing your, first broker, or choosing your last broker, and you've got a big team and you're looking to land the plane for the last time, let's have that conversation. There's a link down below where you can learn more about Julie and I's eXp Realty Group. Or if you're ready to choose a sponsor, Julie and I are formally applying for the job of being your eXp Realty sponsor. And I'll give you the shortcut. You, of course, can go to the site that's down below and you can message us there, or you can just text me directly on my cell phone at 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206. Just text me there and we'll have the conversation about eXp Realty. If you're just looking to get started and gather information, click the link below and you can learn about why literally thousands of agents are joining with Julie and I every single year at eXp Realty. All right, Julie, let's move on to point number 4.
Yes, and this is an easy one to fix, right? But we see it on expireds all the time. That's neglected properties. This is, again, a true story. One seller returned to their vacant home to find roaches in the foyer because nobody had checked on it. In this case, the home didn't actually expire. The seller fired the agent, and it was shown as a withdrawn that one of our coaching clients picked up. We've heard stories of vacant homes being broken into, weeds in the landscaping, unmowed yards, green pools, and the list goes on. So for your own listings, so this doesn't happen to you, check on them every week, right? So, that's kind of an obvious one. Don't neglect the listing and realize that, to your point, Tim, sometimes that's why it expired. It's not because it was an unsellable home. It's because the listing agent did a terrible job.
Poor
Okay.
communication. Poor communication is the next one, and this is the reason that in our pre-listing pack and our listing presentation, we have this is point number 5: poor communication. This actually should have been maybe the only point, Julie, but this is the number one thing that folks recently closed transactions, buyer or seller, even if they like the experience with their listing agent, this is the number one thing they complain about is poor communication. Now, you don't know what poor communication is to you and poor communication is to your customer are, obviously not the same thing. And so with our communication guarantee, you're actually going to give the seller choices, 3 choices of how they want to be communicated with, how frequently they want to be communicated with. Hey, guess what? What platform? WhatsApp, email, Facebook, call, whatever. And you're going to schedule it, they're going to schedule it, and then you're going to have an actual communication plan. And you won't fall into the bucket of poor communicators, because that is one of the best ways to lose your listing is as an expired, soon to be expired, is because the seller is going to simply give up on you because you are such a crappy communicator. And we definitely have the basis covered for you in our pre-listing pack with our communications guarantee. And that is included with Premier Coaching. Point number 6 is price reduction overload. Julie?
That's right. Some sellers only heard from their agent when it was time to get a price reduction. While reductions are sometimes necessary, agents are less likely to get approval from the sellers if they haven't demonstrated their own value first. This is one of the number one things that expired sellers say. The only time I ever heard from them was asking me to reduce my price. And guess what? Even though that might be the best thing for them, they didn't do it because that's the only thing that their agent ever talked to them about. It's kind of counterproductive, but it's true.
Well, the other thing is you got to seed the ground, you got to seed the field for future price reductions. You've got to be telling the seller prior, like when you take the listing, when we're still in the honeymoon phase with the seller, before they found the typos on the home brochure kind of thing, before somebody forgot to take their shoes off when they came through on the showing and they get mad at you for some reason. You need to have had the conversation with them about the expectation is that, and never say price reduction, always say repositioning the house on the market to correctly reflect the market or the buyer's expectations. So Mr. Seller, you're getting contract signed after you've gotten the listing contract signed. Mr. Seller, here's what we're going to do. After 2 weeks or 10 showings, and you can adjust this accordingly, agents, we're going to reposition the house on the market so that we correctly reflect the market's expectations. After 2 weeks or 10 showings, if we don't have a real written offer, that's telling us that we need to be listening to what the feedback is that we're getting from the marketplace. And then if we don't have a real verified written offer, then we need to reposition the house on the market so it correctly reflects the market's expectations. You write that down for them on their listing paperwork and have them put it in their calendar. That way they know you're going to be calling them about that repositioning conversation in 2 weeks or 10 showings. Now, if it's in a market where stuff takes longer to sell, you maybe want to make it, 30 days or 30, you don't want to do 30 showings, but you can adjust it accordingly or just stick to 2 weeks or 10 showings, because really that's where most of the activity is going to happen anyway, no matter what the price range is. So do that. But there's numerous conversations and scripts that we give you that will make it so that the price conversation is going to happen organically because they'll be anticipating it. And then remember the communications guarantee, which was the previous point, you are going to be calling them and using our scripts. We give you guys scripts of what to say to the seller. Every week you call them. We're going to give you exactly what to say, how to say it, so you don't ever have to worry about, the horrible, what have you done for me lately conversation that some of you guys fear, and the seller is going to say, why haven't you shown the house? Mr. Seller, listen, I appreciate you asking that. And it's a really great question. The truth is, Mr. Seller, I might not always be the agent that's showing the house, but I am the reason that it's getting shown. And if you remember correctly from the information I gave you when we take the listing, I showed you my marketing plan. So the reason that you've been getting showings, the reason we've been getting views on the websites, the reason that we've been getting folks that are interested in the house online, takes online and then they want to see it in person, right? Is because of the activity that I'm doing. So you're correct. I'm not always the agent that's going to be showing the house, but I am the reason it's getting shown. And then if you do some open houses, you can overcome that objection. But what happens is if you start hearing that from the sellers, if they start becoming adversarial to you, it's probably because their motivation has changed. And so you need to go back and find out why they're feeling more anxiety. And it could just simply be because their new construction was going to be done in 6 months, but now they're finding out it's going to be done in 3. They haven't told you. Don't assume that they will. And they're under a lot of stress. All right. So, Julie, next section is top strategies for listing expireds.
Yes, and we might not get to all of these because you guys can get them in the newsletter. And certainly our premier coaching clients are living these points every day. All right. Point number 1. Daily phone outreach. Spend at least 1 hour each day calling expireds, withdrawns, and temporarily off the market sellers. Tim explained to you earlier how to use RedX to get your phone numbers easier. Stop using that as an excuse. It takes me forever to find just one phone number. Stop doing that. Get RedX to do it for you. It's unbelievably inexpensive when you use it. It's like the cheapest investment you can make.
Text RED, R-E-D, to 47372. And as far as that goes, I'm going to give you a little advanced player mode. If you really want to take this seriously and make the most of the expired listing opportunity, which is probably the best it's been in probably like 10 years.
Ever.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible. Is you want to, if you guys don't believe me, go to your MLS. You don't need RedX to do this. Go to the MLS. It's Julie's first point from today and look to see how many expireds there have been in the last 12 months. There are thousands. Those are thousands of, and we know 90% of all sellers, all expireds relist and sell within 180 days. So if you take the number of listings that expired in your marketplace, your entire MLS, don't just, choose a tiny little micro market, and then you multiply it times the average sale price, average commission, you're going to find out that there are probably billions of dollars that were being made from expired listings. Had you called them. Don't be lazy. Oh, I'm not going to call them. I'm too busy. I'm going to do direct mail. Or I'm going to do all these other things. Well, then you won't take the listings. You got to call them. It's going to require time. It's going to require effort. It's going to require skill. It's going to require you pushing past your fear of no. Yes, all that is true. But once you get past all that, is a unlimited amount of opportunity and money. All right. So that is, and intuitively what I'm saying is true. To Julie's first point here about the daily phone outreach, advanced player mode time, you guys can count the number of calls you made, the number of contacts you made, the number of conversations you had. You can get as analytical as you want. I'd skip all that crap. I would make the rule if I were coaching you and you wanted to, get right into the deep end. And yes, it will require you to swim harder than you ever have before, but it's going to be a great way for you to learn faster or you will drown. Okay.
True.
This is new reality time. Being direct with you is you have to stay on the phone calling expireds every single day until you set one pre-qualified listing appointment. Yep. That's what you should do because that's going to cut through your own malarkey. You're not going to waste. And I want to go role play. I want to do this. I want to do the other thing. I want to have an accountability partner. Role play with the sellers, because that'll be the most pressure for you to actually do a good job. Your accountability partner is going to be the sellers. You don't have to have all this extra layers of, analytical stuff set up. Get on the phone, make the calls, fall forward, because every time you fall, because you will fall when you're starting, when you get back up, you're going to be further down the road than you otherwise would have been because you fell forward. Keep falling forward, keep making the calls. And then let's just say you fail 10 times in a row, but on the 11th time, you set an appointment, you take a listing, you make $15,000, right? You guys get it? And then you're like, damn, that Tim and Julie were right. All right, Julie, point number 2.
Yeah, and that was on just one deal. Okay. So point number 2, you can door knock without overthinking it. Visit listings that don't have good phone numbers because guess what? Nobody's calling them. If you can't call them, neither is anybody else. Don't overqualify or do a bunch of research or get stuck in analysis paralysis.
Or if you're in
Canada, history
right?
doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you're in Canada, because they're not supposed to call expired. So if you're in Canada, there's no do not knock list, is Julie's point. Point number 3 is prioritize high value homes.
Door knock and call from the most expensive to the least expensive homes because there's far less competition in the pricier categories. Okay. Next we have.
Well, that is an interesting point though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that, yeah, I mean, when you and I would call expireds, we would use a service similar to RedX, and we did call the most expensive ones first because most agents were just too nervous to call the more expensive seller. That's it. And
That's
we'd have
it.
less competition. And when we were calling, we probably had four decent, competitors that were also calling, but they weren't calling the most expensive ones first. They were comfortable with the average sale price stuff and lower. And we figured, well, let's just go at the most expensive stuff and higher. And it worked. And no one was calling them. And guess what? The seller that's selling $1 million or $5 million house, they're no different than a seller that's selling a,
No.
$300,000 house. The
Right.
$300,000 house will be the one selling the $5 million house in 20 years. It's the same person that's, same essentially hopes, fears, same anxiety from having not had the house sell, all the same things. They're no different. They,
Sometimes they're easier because they know what you do. They've been through enough sales that they're kind of comfortable with it. They're
yeah,
they're not as pesty in a way. Okay. Number
not as
4,
needy. They're not as
as needy.
needy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So many of you are pretty buyer heavy right now, and you're still in some areas low on inventory. So match your buyers to expireds. The expireds are not actively showing in your MLS. You're not going to have to compete for those. Target expired homes that fit the criteria of your buyers struggling with low inventory. This is a favorite strategy among our coaching clients, pairing their real buyer clients with their leads for quick transactions. I have several coaching clients that have like 8 or 9 deals pending, and they're on both sides of most of them. And about half of that never was even in the MLS because they keep a book. And if I were getting into real estate today to sell, right, instead of to coach, I would absolutely do this because it works so well. They keep a master book of wants and needs. And these are sometimes just their friends that say, you know what, the only way I would move is if I could get a this and a this that's got a that in that neighborhood. And they write it down, right? And then they go searching for it and they talk to everybody and they play matchmaker. It works really well. And the agents love it because they have more control. They're not dealing with another agent. They're not having to compete. They can deal with, closing and possession dates. They can craft the deal so that both sides are happy. That's a great use for expireds.
You got
I know
older
you're thinking.
expired. You have older expireds. You have FISBOs. You have older FISBOs that stop trying to sell. You
Mm-hmm.
have for rent by owners that actually might want to sell their houses. All these different sources. We teach you guys how to hunt all these types of leads in Premier Coaching. And chances are you conceptually know what we're talking about, but you don't know how to do any of it. And you're probably also understanding the vibe is that we want you to be proactive. You actually have to do the real work of real estate. That's where all the opportunity and all the money is. When everyone else is running to CRMs and drip campaigns and everyone else is running to the, hoping that someone does the work for them, you go the opposite direction because that's where all the customers are. The customers want to have real conversations with you. The conversations have to be about what's important to them. They don't care about your awards and your dog and your social media, influence list and all the people following you. They just want to know what you're going to do for them. And what a great way to show them what you're going to do for them, because you're going to show them a list of previously for sale homes that might be for sale again. If, you were to go knock, 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 or call that seller and find out that yes, indeed, they'd still love to sell the house. All right, Julie, you did that one. That's point number 5. It's basically the same thing. I
We
mean, we're
talked
talking
about
about the
that.
same thing. Yeah, reach
Mm-hmm.
out to expireds, withdrawn, temporarily off the market, all those things. And you're going to Julie's first point again today, learn how to use the MLS because you're going to find all kinds of hidden opportunity. And by the way, we didn't even talk about new construction today. All right. And last bit, obviously, is the most important part is make sure you're joining Premier Coaching. Use our scripts, use our seller system, use our pre-qualification script, use our pre-listing pack, use our listing presentation, and then use RedX to go after the actual generation of the lead for you. Text the word RED to 47372 for that $150 discount. So if you ask Julie and I, and people do, Tim and Julie, if you guys were to get back into real estate, what would you do? We always give them the same answer. And I mean, even having this conversation, it kind of excites me because there are so many expireds, even in our community.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, yeah, it's bonkers the opportunity that would be that's available right outside our back door, quite literally. But if you were to, for example, ask us that question, the answer would be expired listings and centers of influence and past clients.
Definitely.
And
Mm-hmm.
most of you
And
will
open
never.
houses. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But the open houses wouldn't be for us. They'd be for us to sell our listings, but they'd be for us to really to meet the neighbors. That's really what our focus would be.
The
And just
next
show
listings.
And right, to look for the next listing. Your mindset, it should always be about where am I going to get my next listing or my next 5 listings or my next 10 listings. All right, guys. So thank you for listening today. And remember, if you want to listen to any of our past 7,000 podcasts, we've been doing this for well over 10 years. You can listen anytime just by subscribing to our newsletter, harrisrealestatedaily.com. Or obviously iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, all those great places. Thank you for keeping this the number one listened to daily podcast, daily, as in we do this every day except Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, for real estate agents in at least the United States. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.